Okay. So the first item we have is 24-189, which is ratify 1976 agreement with commissioners. I think, Mr. Huber, you were working on this, and Mr. Piccoli, I guess, from a legal perspective, you and Mr. Piccoli from the search to see if there was any issues underneath the area that the easement existed.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. So the forensic experts came out September 14th. They did the GPR, which is ground penetrating radar, and the electromagnetic induction, and there was no indication of any burials in that respective area. So they gave us a report on it. I just received it and cleared that property for any burials that were believed to be there.
Okay, and Mr. Huber, I think the agreement back from the 1976 was never really adopted by the council at that time, and the agreement in essence provides that they're permitted to park on a certain area. They were paid for a sidewalk that went in that joined, what was it? Friendship and Liberty. And that's in existence as of today. Either party has 30 days notice to terminate the agreement, but it renews until that period of time that either party terminates it. Is that correct?
That's correct, and it was never actually adopted formally by the city council, at least from the records we were able to find, and so I've asked the council now to ratify this agreement.
And my understanding is, as the cemetery is concerned that's located there, no new interments can happen. I mean, because it's an historic site.
That's correct.
Okay, so, I mean, this agreement being in place in my mind, and it's been there, luckily there was nothing found under there, because that was my biggest concern. And then we have a sidewalk out of it. You know, I'm not really sure, you know, why we want to continue to own it. Maybe there's a reason for the size or whatever, but I don't know. To me, this has been, what, 40 years now? And we had a trade-off at that time for a sidewalk versus the parking. I get it. So I don't know what everybody else thinks about that.
I'm okay with it. As long as there's no interment there.
There's none there.
It's been working well.
Okay, so is there a motion to ratify the 1976 agreement?
I'll make a motion to ratify the 1976 agreement.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And Chet,
Motion carries.
the commissioner, one of the commissioners at that time, Chet, was Mr. Don Simmons. That's right.
Way back
Charlie
when.
Clark and John O'Donnell.
Okay, 24-191, we have budget amendments. We have one that's 2024-045, which is parking review, employee donation and sale, and ARPA. Keith?
So the parking review.
Turn your thing on.
Sorry, the parking official is the first few. Then there's money from the Adam Board for tools and minor equipment for the court. A donation, we thank them at the police. From the fire, we sold a fire truck. They want to appropriate the money they got for the sale, and then a reduction in ARPA, which is just squaring things up on that grant.
All right, any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 24-192, which is an increase in expenditure to Rogue Fitness doing business as Kotler Ventures LLC. I got this, received this from Barbara Deser just before. This was, the increase is due to the cost of mailing or shipping that was not included in the original estimate, so it needs to be increased $93.09. Though we passed it, we have to re-appropriate the amount of money being spent to add additional $93.09.
I think, we need the emergency clause?
Yes, emergency clause is needed, yes.
I'll make the motion to approve with the emergency clause.
My second, which includes the emergency clause.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 24-193, expenditure over $20,000 of Pioneer Waterproofing fiscal year 22 CHIP. Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an existing PO to Pioneer Basement Waterproofing for $25,750. It's an increase of $400, so they're adding a chimney footer repair and removing handrail installation, so the new total will be $26,150. Thank you.
Any questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 24-194, amend ordinance 128-24, Medina Courthouse lease payments. Keith?
This is to make these payments.
And I think the reason we're amending it is to make one more payment for next year. Is that correct? I think we already approved it through an ordinance already to make the payments, and we split it between the two accounts. And then I think this is to add another 25, the first payment in the quarter of 25. Okay.
Move to approve.
Second?
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 24-195, amend ordinance 5924, 2024 concrete street repair program. Who's handling this one? Oh, Nino, you got the job, okay.
Yeah, Patrick's not here this evening, so this is to amend ordinance 59-24, asking council to increase the ordinance by $20,000 to cover the cost for additional concrete street repair due to water line breaks, lead line services that were necessary to repair, and some other additional repairs.
Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 24-196, fair market value estimates for South Court sanitary sewer relocation. Nino?
Thank you, Mr. President. So the appraisals, this project is for the sewer to be located for the hotel on South Court Street. With respect to the appraisals, they've been finished for the 3 property owners that the city needs to obtain easements from. So you need council to accept these appraisals in order to be able to submit it, an offer to each owner. In further agreement, the city must acquire the easements, but the county is responsible for the cost. So the city will pay the easements, pay for the easements, and then submit the cost to the county for reimbursement. And I think you have the copies of the parcels. The addresses are 241 South Court, 239 South Court, and 229 and 233 South Court. So respectively, we're looking at $9,850 in total.
We've got,
Okay. Any questions?
it's 241, 239, and 279 or 229 is what we have. Oh, and 233.
Correct,
Never
and
mind.
233 coupled with 229.
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 24-197, increased expenditure PO 2024-1383, Winthrop Construction. Nino?
Thank you, Mr. President. So with respect to PO 24-1383 for Wintro, asking to increase this PO to cover a cost of railroad derailment repairs on the city line between State Road and Progress Drive. So the repair included installing 70 feet of rail as well as 50 railroad ties. So that will handle this repair.
How did, just a question, I know that back in the day, we had a grant and we put all new rail in there, I think it was like 900,000. Maybe I'm wrong, but how did that rail fail? If that's, maybe this rail wasn't replaced, but how,
I'm thinking it probably wasn't. Patrick can probably better answer that. I'm not sure to. Go
I
ahead.
know the grant didn't replace all the rail,
Okay.
and so they went through, and that was the, because the feds wanted shovel-ready projects, and that's pretty much always shovel-ready, so that was what we put through for that, but it was for basically the worst rail. I know it
Okay.
wasn't all of it.
because I was just wondering, because I thought it'd last longer than that, but maybe this wasn't.
I can't confirm for sure that this is old rail versus new, but I do know that we didn't replace all of
Okay.
it, so.
All right,
The ties could have gone bad too, the rail could have been brand new, but if the ties.
Yeah, but I thought
Right,
I didn't know
that
if
would
they
cause the problem.
spent all
as
the
well.
money, because there was a lot of money spent on that
Yeah.
short line, I figured that would last for years, but what do I know?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 24-198, amend code chapter 5019 fireworks and chapter 549 carrying concealed weapons. Mr. Huber.
These two proposals attempt to bring the city ordinance concerning fireworks and the city ordinance concerning carrying concealed weapons in line with the state law.
And what we have to do, we have to comply with the state law in any event. I assume we can't have any less restrictive ordinances on the books, but we have to match the state law. Is that correct?
Correct.
So this is just matching the state law and putting it into our city code so that we can enforce it under our jurisdiction and not the state's jurisdiction, because I think that changes it.
That's exactly right.
Anybody have any questions on that?
I have a question.
Yes, Paul?
With that, okay, we can't have anything more lax than the state. Can we have something more restrictive than the state? Or do we have to match the state word for word?
Well, that's a complicated issue, but on this topic, we need to basically match the state law.
Okay, it is word for word, okay.
Yeah, I know sometimes, if you remember correctly, back in the day, in the late 90s, we had a marijuana law in here that was more strict than the state, and I think it was,
That law is still on our books until
Okay.
last year.
yeah, so it was 3 days, I think, and 3 days in prison, or not in prison, but
The
in
charge
county.
was the same as if someone were to beat their spouse.
You're right. It was tough. So we did more restrictive than the state.
Okay, all right.
But- But I know what he's saying, because there's some constitutional issues here with the carrying of firearms.
Right,
Because now you're in a different area, because you have other constitutional issues to look at because of the Second Amendment.
okay.
And I'm sure the Constitution of Ohio, so. But, okay, anybody have any questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 24-200, change order for Green Home Solutions fiscal year 22 CHIP. Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an existing PO to Graham Solutions for CHIP project at 850 North Huntington Street. It's a little bit complicated. The existing ordinance split the funding between CHIP home funds, which is our general CHIP funds, and CHIP LAP funds, which is, the LAP is lead abatement program. With this request, we're changing the source of the funds to $40,575 from the CHIP home funds and $6,900 from our program income, because we were unable to use the lead abatement program here. So there will also be a change in the total costs, deducting $600 to remove a kitchen vent and adding $7,500 to add a new electric panel, so a net change of $6,900 for a grand total of $47,475. Thank you.
Any questions?
Oh, and we also requested the emergency clause, as the project has already started, so we'd like to get this processed.
Move to approve with the emergency clause?
Second, including emergency clause?
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Anything else to come before finance? That was kind of quick. We got an hour and 15 minutes before council. Nothing? Okay, the meeting is adjourned.